Alright folks, today I'm here to give you my thoughts on the premiere of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. I don't think I'm ever gonna get over how long that title is. Now, was this premiere the most action-packed, explosive premiere of all time? No, it wasn't. But with that being said, I think there were things that worked really well, but there are some things that were a little contrived. But let's start from the beginning. I don't know about you guys, but I actually found the Carol storyline, as slow as it was, to be far more interesting than what's going on with Daryl. As of now, we don't really know Laurent's true purpose, and for me, that's becoming a bit frustrating as he's the catalyst kicking off most of the plotlines surrounding the Union of Hope. Last season we learned he was born from a walker, but what did this do exactly? What about him leads the Union of Hope to think he is gonna save them? Do they want to make a cure out of him? I don't think so, that seems more like a Pavor thing. He's said to be the new Messiah as he was born from death, but from what we've seen he's kinda just a normal kid that's been really sheltered his entire life, so I'm hoping we get some answers to that sooner than later. Maybe I just don't really understand what being the new Messiah actually entails. Hopefully you guys can help me out in the comments down below. As for the rest of Daryl's story this episode, we're really not given that much. We see him planning to take the next possible boat back to America, which kinda just makes the season 1 finale even more frustrating, as he really had no reason to stay besides making sure Laurent was settled into his new home. But while he's there, a meeting is held where Losang reveals Pavor had captured some of their Union allies, including Falou, who we met last season. And Daryl, being who he is, wants to go rescue them as they're being transported from Paris. But Losang objects as they are a non-violent movement. We even see them practicing Aikido, which is a nice callback to Morgan and Eastman, but reinforces this philosophy. However, this just leaves me wondering even further what they're hoping Laurent's gonna do to save them. He doesn't even want him training to fight with Daryl, as he thinks the violence is a bad influence, so again, I hope we really explore Laurent's true purpose soon. But despite his orders not to engage with Pavor, Daryl does anyway, along with a few allies. And although I did like seeing him go rogue, much like we saw in Season 8 of the main show, I kind of rolled my eyes when Janae got away. I don't think she should die now in the story, but with that being said, it's ridiculous to think Daryl or the rest wouldn't immediately be searching her down after she snuck off. It just kinda gives off feelings of Rick and Negan fighting but never killing each other in all-out war because they have to save it for the finale. I'm glad their people were rescued, but I can't help but feel like there was a much better way to portray this. But that is basically all we get in terms of Daryl's story this episode. If I'm being totally honest, I'm not really that interested in the whole fight back against Pavor thing. I understand they kinda have to do that, Daryl's a hero, but it's the experiments on the dead that I'm way more interested in. And looking at the previews for the rest of the season, it looks like they definitely are gonna deliver on that. But moving on to the Carol side of this episode, which is by far the majority, we get to see her rip around the wasteland with Daryl's motorbike, which will honestly never get old. Something about it just fits so well. I'd love to see them one day each have their own bikes and ride side by side. But she is 100% back, and I don't just mean physically. I mean, whoever they have writing her in this show seems to really know what they want to do with her. Gone are the days of season 10 where she's feeling useless and down on herself while chasing a rat around the house. This is a determined and frustrated Carol. She's not just waiting for answers to come her way. She's fighting, lying, and manipulating her way to find them. One thing I've noticed in these post-finale spin-offs that I've actually really been enjoying, it seems like society is beginning to really adapt to the apocalypse. I love seeing the open mechanic yards that see simple people come through looking for work. They did this in Dead City too, with Maggie visiting that bar in the premiere with the motel. I don't know, I just think it's kinda cool to see how the world isn't quite as quiet or dead as we once thought. But as Carol begins interrogating these mechanics, they reveal to her what we already know, with Daryl being shipped over to France in a boat. But what immediately piqued my interest was when Carol asked who owned the boat that took him. The guy says something along the lines of it was some French guys who were looking for American walkers. Now, obviously, the specification of American walkers is really interesting. If you saw my Variants of France video, one of the things I couldn't quite place was the purpose of shipping walkers from America to France. But now we know there is something about the American walkers that differ from the French. This is the kind of stuff that honestly gets me really excited. It's about time they start getting creative with the lore on the walkers. But immediately after finding out Daryl was across the sea and no boat was coming back to take her, Carol spots a plane flying over her that causes her to hit a walker and crash her car. I was really hoping she was later gonna reference Lori flipping her car in season 2, but it is what it is. Now, is the plane appearing right when she needs it convenient? Yeah. But ultimately, it is a means to an end for the story, and with only 6 episodes again this season, we kinda gotta get the show on the road, so I'll let it slide. But what I absolutely adore was the set design of that drive-in movie theater. It can be frustrating seeing all these perfectly maintained roads when we're supposed to be like 15 years into the outbreak, but whenever I see set pieces like this, I more or less forgive the small oversights because this looks amazing. It's a short scene, but I think I could maybe make an environmental storytelling video on it. I don't know, I'll have to go back and rewatch it, but let me know if that's something you guys would want to see. But here we see Carol track the plane down to the home of a lone survivalist. And I kinda use that term loosely for reasons we're gonna get into shortly. Right away, we see Carol dig into her Season 5 Alexandria self by pretending to be in need of help as she fakes getting caught in the man's perimeter trap. But despite surviving this far into the outbreak, the man believes her story of crashing and simply looking for help as he offers a place for her to stay for the night. He introduces himself as Ash, and despite his decent setup, he has frequent issues with the generator losing power. But as he leads Carol towards the barn to sleep for the night, we get this really interesting moment when approaching the doors where she suddenly finds herself lost in the memory of Sophia's death that had been buried for years. I love this callback, but I gotta say I was a bit confused why they chose to shoot it in a place that wasn't Herschel's farm. I don't know where this was, but I feel like it wouldn't have been that hard to superimpose her into the scene at the actual farm. But who knows, maybe it's just for a reason I don't quite understand. Regardless, I love when old wounds suddenly reopen in characters despite years of growth. It's a very real thing, and I'm glad they're doing this over giving her another kid that'll eventually die. As for Ash, there are aspects to him that are interesting for sure, but for a survivalist, he's not really that cautious. He kinda just lets this complete stranger sleep next to his extremely valuable plane. But regardless, the next morning he agrees to fly around and look for parts to fix Carol's car out of the goodness of his heart. But while talking, he suddenly rushes off to a greenhouse that was locked with a code, leading Carol to believe he was hiding a secret. And once alone, the generator would once again power down, giving her the opportunity to snoop around. But instead of finding something disturbing, she finds a shrine to his son that passed, explaining why he never left this place despite owning a functional plane that could pretty much take him anywhere. But as she continues snooping, walkers push the gate open that was powered down and begin to flood the yard. Why Ash wouldn't take precautions by putting physical locks on the gates while knowing of the power issue is kinda beyond me, but regardless, Carol is ambushed and forced to barricade herself with shelves before climbing out to safety. The setup might be a little dumb, but I do like scenes like this because they show how these slow creatures do get you. It's at times when you're not paying attention and have your guard down while cornering yourself. Ash returns to scold Carol for entering the greenhouse without permission, but to be honest, this kind of just made me laugh. If I was Carol, I'd totally be covering myself there. It wasn't my fault your generator powered down, I just ran to the nearest building for safety. Maybe you should get real locks. But despite his anger, Ash opens up about the guilt he has over the death of his son after she offers to clean up the mess, which really speaks to her after the moment she had remembering Sophia. And after finishing with the repairs, he offers for her to have dinner with him, where we get this small scene that I initially loved with Ash placing a Cherokee rose on the table. It was so subtle and so perfect. And then they flash back to the scene in season 2. AMC or Gimple or whoever is in charge of the editing process, your audience is not dumb. It's okay to let a scene be subtle and powerful. You don't have to replay that scene for us to realize how important that flower is to their relationship. But as mentioned earlier, this is a determined and frustrated Carol, and despite the various callbacks to her past, she does something I genuinely did not think she was capable of. She uses the death of Sophia to manipulate Ash into flying her over to France, claiming her dad had taken her there for a vacation at the beginning and she could still be alive. tugging on those heartstrings she knows he has after looking through that greenhouse. This is a pretty hardcore lie for a parent to tell, but goddamn am I here for it. Ash isn't stupid though, and knows when he's being manipulated. Although not to the full extent, as he believes the story of Sophia, but realizes she just wants him for the plane to get to France. And although he is angry at first, he does come around the next day, as he would have done anything if he knew his son was out there somewhere. So planning the best path for travel, Ash decides it would be best to refuel the tank in Greenland to avoid as much time over the open ocean as possible. And where are they going to get this fuel? Well, apparently Ash was able to produce it with all his free time. But as a storm rolls in that night before takeoff, the property's generator will be struck by lightning, which unfortunately blows up said ethanol supplies that rages a fire onto the property, leading to a frantic escape while the dead approach from the woods in what is my favorite shot of the episode. I'm a huge sucker for zombies in the foggy woods at night, what can I say? But barely lifting up off the ground, the two would reach safety above the clouds as the sun peaks over the horizon. But without their extra fuel supplies, it seems like they're more than likely going to be stuck in Greenland for an episode or two. These spin-offs have had a habit of killing off their newly introduced characters, and during the trailers, I was afraid that was going to happen with Ash as well. But with that lie being told about Sophia by Carol lingering over their relationship, I actually don't think he's going to meet his end this season. We see how Ash reacts to being lied to when he figured out Carol just wanted him for the plane. So the seeds are planted for a huge fallout when the time comes. I theorize by the end of the season, when Daryl is found, the truth will come out and Ash will abandon them in France, explaining why they're still in Europe by season 3. Will it be deserved? Probably, but I'm all for seeing conflicts between characters that don't just end with one killing the other. But overall, those are my thoughts on the premiere for the Book of Carol. A slower episode for sure, but a really intriguing setup for Ash and Carol's relationship. As of right now, the stuff in France with Laurent, Isabelle, and the Union of Hope isn't really gripping me. But again, once we have a clearer picture on Laurent's purpose for the future of the franchise, I think I'll come around. But of course, the thing I'm most excited to see is Pavor's experiments with the variants. I'm of the belief the hybrid serum will be used to create walker-killing walkers that will help Pavor retake France, with the aspect of them exploding in a set period of time being a key factor. I honestly just want to see how the World Beyond post-credit scene connects to the series, and with Daryl Dixon Season 3 heading to Spain, it seems like this will be the time to do it. It feels like hype has been down for the Walking Dead universe ever since the CRM were defeated, so hopefully they'll be able to deliver on something that will bring that same kind of interest. I think the episode was definitely an enjoyable watch, but it didn't quite bring the excitement I was looking for, so I think I'd probably place it around a 7 out of 10. But I am excited to hear what you guys thought about the premiere in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching.